to give in-depth knowledge on the particular topics and the series. So friends, under the series today we are going to talk on organizational justice. In the first half we would be discussing on concept, evolution as well as types of organizational justice, whereas in the second half we would be discussing on antecedents and outcomes of organizational justice. And for this very discussion we have once again with us in our studios Dr. Namita Rajput. Dr. Namita Rajput is a dynamic professor who is currently principal in Sri Aurobindo Evening College, University of Delhi. Dr. Rajput has authored numerous books and students are always enlightened after learning through her. She also believes in giving her utmost knowledge and sharing her experiences with the students. Therefore, through the live sessions, she gives you the knowledge which we believe is very, very beneficial for you. So friends, if you want to ask questions from Dr. Rajput, then you can call right in the CEC studio. You can contact us through our toll-free number. Our number is 1800110430. So friends, let's welcome our guest Dr. Namita Rajput and let's try to discuss first on concept, evolution and types of organizational justice. Hello ma'am, welcome to the lecture.
Good morning friends. Today we have a very pertinent topic called organizational justice. Justice is a very important part of our lives, be it a corporate life, be it at home, be it everywhere. Everyone who's a part and parcel and associated with our lives, they need justice. Justice is not a complete concept in its own. It means you are being fair in whatever you do. So overall, the justice, the organizational justice, when you talk about, is a multi-dimensional concept. It has a concept of psychology, philosophy, human resource management, economics, commerce, and so many other multidisciplines into it. So it is not a simple connotation to explain. When you talk about the organizational justice, we talk about the various aspects like distributional justice, procedural justice, interpersonal justice and informational justice. So research also tells us that if there is a feeling of injustice which is prevailing in the organization at large, this is going to fill a concept of the overall decline for the organization. The people will not be happy, they will not be motivated, their organizational performance will be hardly hit because they feel that there is a concept of injustice which is spreading in the organization at large. So we at the organizational level should try and enforce and imbibe such values that we should be procedurally and emotionally, informationally, distributively having a justice all around. The justice or the fairness refers to the idea that the action or the decisions which is morally right, which may be defined as according to ethics, religion, fairness, equity and law. Whatever equity, whatever fairness, whatever justice we talk about, we are deriving it from the different facets of life, like we have our legal system, we have our religion, we have the fairness, we have the set of values which is called as the ethics, which decides the appropriateness of the action of rightness and the wrongness. So overall, a matter of fact, the organizational justice should be achieved and we derive it from the ethics, religion, fairness and law. So the justice or the fairness refers to the idea that action or decisions is morally right, which may be defined according to ethics, religion, fairness, equity and law. Now people are naturally attentive to the justice of events and the situation in their everyday lives according to a variety of context, ethics, religion, fairness, law and organizational justice. So perception of fair pay, equal opportunities for promotion, personal selection procedures. So people are they are naturally attentive to the justice of events and situations in their everyday walk of life. The context which we are talking about here is what? It is about the ethics, that is a set of moral values which is right or wrong. It is affected by a religion. The religion are immense. We have humanity. Humanity is the best religion. We have Hinduism, we have Christianity, we have Islam, we have so many religions, and religion talks about the set of things which are right or wrong for the society. Then we have a concept of fairness, then we have a concept of law. So all these together, if we culminate all the four pillars together, we call it as the organizational justice. So it is all about the perception of a thing, like a fair pay. the opportunities which are available for everyone for the promotion. Then of course the personal selection procedures. According to one individual, the same concept is right, whereas according to other, the decision may be wrong. The decisions which you take are affected by an individual. Suppose, for example, I am taking a decision because that suits me. So the context here is individualism. So whatever decisions I am taking is under the perspectives of an individual. So individual talks about only the benefits which are derived to an individual. Whereas the same thing if I endorse it to the society at large. So here the decision whatever I am taking is not suiting to the society as such, but yes, it is suiting an individual, so it is individualism. If the concept and the decision is suiting the society at large, we call it as the overall benefits which is endorsed to the society, and we call it as a utilitarianism. So here the concept of fairness, decision making, the opportunities, they differ from individual to individual. So it is a matter of perception to them. So let us do the concept of organizational justice in detail. As we see on this slide, in the introduction slide, justice or fairness refers to the idea that an action or decision is morally right, which may be defined according to ethics, religion, fairness, equity or law. Justice and its execution is one of the basic and distinct needs of the human beings. That's why the justice plays an effective and a major role in studying the organizations, individuals either inside or outside of it. Now taking it forward, the organizational justice refers to the employee's perception from justice and fair behaviors. It studies as to how to behave with the employees so that they feel they have been treated fairly. As we can see in this particular slide, there is a beam balance. On one side is the fair behavior of an employee, and on the other hand, we have a concept of being treated fairly. If the organizational people are able to derive this kind of justice to the employees would be happy, the labor turnover would be less. So that means the organizational justice is a requirement for the success of the organizations of today. If the employees are doing what they are supposed to do, that is, their behavior is a fair behavior, similarly, this should be reflected in the concept and the practices of the organization also. Why it is reflected and how it is reflected? It is very important for the organization to show a kind of a justice which is there in their actions, and there should be kind of a feeling which should be proliferated all around the organization. There should be a penetration of this kind of a feeling that there is no biasness in the organization and all the employees are treated equally. So if the organization is able to do this, the success is sure, and this is what we call as organizational justice. The organizational justice mainly concentrates on the workplace fairness, which influences the numerous organizational and individual work-related factors like turnover, intentions, absenteeism, job satisfaction, organizational commitment, role breadth, job performance, leader-member exchange, trust, leadership, and job satisfaction. So here we are talking about the organizational justice at a workplace. So this is for sure, we are not talking about the home lives or the organizations, their private life. We are talking here about, when you're talking about the organizational justice, we are talking about the organization as a whole, in which the fairness must reflect. So definitely which influences the numerous organization and individual work related factors like turnover, intentions, absenteeism, job satisfaction, commitment, role breadth, job performance, leader member exchange, trust, leadership, and job satisfaction. So here the main concept which is reflected in this slide is what? If the organization is showing the organizational justice in their action, there are so many things and there is a straight spillover impact of the organizational justice on the following aspects. Number one, the turnover of the employees is controlled, that means you are able to retain the maximum number of people in your organization because they are happy with the organization, they are happy with the behavior, they are happy with the overall concept of fairness in the organization. Number 2, the absenteeism would go down. That is, the people will feel like coming and there is a transformation from inside. There is no force which is showing these kind of tactics, but overall the absenteeism is decreased when the organizational justice is increased. So there is an inverse relationship of the organizational justice with the absenteeism. Of course, the people feel more satisfied. There is a commitment which is shown of the employees to the organization. There is, of course, the rise in the performance level. So when you talk about the performance level and organizational justice, there is a direct relationship. The organizational justice, when it moves on, the job performance also goes up. Similarly, the kind of a relationship of trust and overall a good leadership position and job satisfaction, they also move up. So all these parameters, they are directly linked with the organizational justice. That is, overall they have to control the organizational justice part. They have to reflect the justice in their overall organizational activities, and of course these parameters would always go up, but whereas the concept of the turnover and absenteeism would go down. So these are the negative parameters which has to go down because of the rise in the organizational justice. Now coming on to that how there is an evolution of organizational justice. So what was the idea behind it? How did the concept of organizational justice, which is new in nature, has evolved over the years? The idea of organizational justice stems from equity theory of motivation, which says that the judgment of equity and inequity are derived from comparison between oneself and others based on input and outcomes. Input refers to what a person perceives to contribute, that is the knowledge and effort, and outcomes are what an individual perceives to get out of an exchange relationship, that is a pay and recognition. The input and the output. As you have seen in this slide, there has to be balance between the two. The individual is expected to put in their best knowledge, to put in their experience, to put in their overall efforts as far as the organizational work is concerned. So what do the employees, they expect in return? They expect that they are given a good pay, they are given a recognition, they are given a promotion. So if there is a equal balance between the two, that is the input, that is the knowledge, effort, experience which is put into the organizational work, and the output in terms of the payment and the recognition, then of course we call it that the overall behavior is also good as far as the employees is concerned. They are doing what they are supposed to do, and of course the outcomes, that is the pay, recognition, is also good. So there is a complete fairness in the activities of the organization also. So this is what is we call as the organizational justice, if we are able to strike the balance between the two, that is the input and the outputs. Now taking it forward, the organizational justice comes from where? As you see, the arrow is coming inside the organizational justice. That is, first, the laws. The laws are the country's do's and don'ts which have a legal aspect behind it and a legal backing behind it. So if the law says that this is right or wrong, so it is a part of organizational justice. Similarly, the concept of fairness also comes to the organizational justice to make it good for the organization. Similarly, any kind of a religion, whether it is Christianity or Hinduism or Islam or Christianity, no religion will tell us to do anything which is wrong to the humanity, wrong to the people. In fact, they would teach us the things which are beneficial for the society at large. So they contribute a lot as far as the organizational justice is concerned, because whatever values are imbibed into us right from our childhood, they are reflected in our behavior also. So similarly, the concept of ethics, they also affect the organizational justice, because ethics is a set of values, a set of moral values which states what is right and what is wrong. So if all these factors, that is the 4 factors, are culminated together, we call it as organizational justice. And of course, there is an outward arrow of issues, that is the perception of a fair pay, the perception of equal opportunities for promotion, and the personal selection procedure. So all these things are reflected when you talk about the organizational justice for the organization. So the outcome is that you are able to have the good pay, you are able to give equal opportunities to the large number of people, you are able to give a lot of good promotion schemes to the people, and similarly the selection procedure would also be fair. So if all these things are there, we call it as the organizational justice is good and the organization is able to perform well. The behavioral aspect, the input-output ratio, as far as the organizational justice is concerned is okay for this. So organizational justice theory developed from applied research in the organizational settings focuses on how individuals socially construct incidents of justice and injustice. Justice in organizational justice research is examined through the perception of employees in organizations who make judgment about the action of the organization leaders. Number 1, organizational justice generally refers to the perception of fairness in treatment of individual internal to that organization, which corporate social responsibility focuses on fairness of treatment of entities external to the organization. Now let us come on the concept of the types of the organizational justice. Now the scholars have identified in the theory of organizational justice and research the 3 different aspects of organizational justice. The first is the distributive justice, the second is procedural justice, the third is interactional justice. So as we move on with the types and the categories of organizational justice, we would be taking it one by one. The distributive justice talks about equity, equality, needs, which talks about outcome, decision, satisfaction. Let us talk about the procedural justice, policies, procedures, process, and the end result is a system satisfaction. Interactional justice talks about interpersonal treatment as far as the human beings are concerned, and the impact and the outcome is about the relationship satisfaction. So when you talk about the organizational justice, there are basically 3 things which we have highlighted here, which is very important from the organization point of view also. That is the distributive, procedural and interactional justice. Now the 3 dimensions as we are moving with the organizational justice, distributive, procedural and interaction, we will take it one by one. Let us first talk about the distributive justice. It is based on equity theory, which was propounded by Adams in 1965. Perceptions of individuals on the degree of which rewards are distributed in equitable, just and fair manner. Distributive justice exists when there is an equality between expectations about reward, inputs at workplace and actual distribution of rewards. So when you saw the previous slides in which we talked about the evolution of the organizational justice, we already talked about the balance between the input and the output. The input of an individual was talking about the energies, the efforts which is being put by an individual for the organization. The organizational output talks about the kind of pay, recognition, rewards which are given to an individual. So this is the outward thing. So the input and the output has to be commensurate with each other. There has to be an equality between the two. So overall, this distributive justice is talking about the distribution aspect. Distribution of what? The distribution of monetary aspect, rewards, in a fair and distributive manner, in an equitable manner, in a just manner. So you are able to strike the distributive justice only when. Only when means that is you are able to give the concept of expectations about the rewards to the individual, you are able to have the right kind of input at the workplace, and actual distribution of rewards is right. So this is what is all about the distributive justice. Let us now talk about the procedural justice. The fairness issues concerning the methods, mechanism, process used to determine the outcomes. Fairness, just, equitable rules and regulations followed by the organization in deciding and determining the outcomes, benefits, rewards, employees in the organization. Now there is a fair procedural effect. This is a beautifully explained concept which every student must understand. Only then you will be able to have the conceptual clarity of what the procedural effect is all about. Employee is given a voice in making decision. That is, the procedure is empowering the employee. It leads to what? It leads to employee feels valued by decision making authority. If he feels valued, there are two effects. Employee believes the resulting decision is fair, and employee believes the process on which the decisions is based is also fair. This leads to employee acceptance and follows the decision. Similarly, employee is supportive of an organizational itself. So what is the trick of the procedural aspect and effect is here? We are trying to involve the employees themselves so that their acceptable behavior is there. They are able to imbibe the trust in the activities of the organization. So here all the decision making is, the employee becomes a major vital part of the decision making, which leads to his belief in the organization, which makes him perform well. Individually the production would go high, his level of motivation will also be high, and there are spillover positive impacts which leads to the acceptance of the system at large. And similarly, the supportive environment which is given and accepted by the employee, also the spectrum becomes very large and broad. So overall this is the procedural effect of the employee acceptance as far as the procedural justice is concerned. In the previous slide we talked about the other kind of a justice which was called as the distributive justice. The distributive justice, the main idea was the fairness in the distribution of rewards and the salaries according to the input and the output. Then the procedural justice talks about to making the procedures better so that the employees, they feel empowered and there is a win-win situation for both employees and employers, so that the system becomes acceptable to the employees and there is a rise in the motivational level, procedural level, production level, performance levels. Now we talked about the procedural justice. Let us have a look on this. This talks about the appropriateness of the process, consistency, all employees are treated the same, lack of biasness, no person or group is singled out for discrimination or ill effects or ill treatment, accuracy, decisions are based on accurate information, representation of all concerned, that is appropriate stakeholders have inputs into decisions, correction, there is an appeal process or other mechanism for fixed mistakes, and ethics, norms of procedural conduct are not violated. Now let us now talk about the third type, that is the interactional justice. It refers to the treatment of an individual receives decisions are made and are promoted by providing explanations and decisions and delivering the news with sensitivity and respect. A construct validation study of Collio 2001 suggested the interactional justice should be broken into two components, interpersonal and informational justice. Interpersonal justice refers to the perception of respect, propriety in one's treatment, while informational justice relates to the adequacy of the explanations given in terms of their timelines, specificity and truthfulness. Now, interactional justice is considered as a key aspect at workplace setting because of its relationship with unfair and fair treatment. Interpersonal treatment of employees receive from the decision makers and adequacy with which the formal decision making procedures are explained. The appropriateness of the treatment and one receives from the authority figures out that the interpersonal justice is treating an employee with dignity, courtesy and respect. So this interactional justice is all about giving respect, giving courtesy, giving dignity to the employees so that they have this kind of a feeling that they are being given the interactional justice and sharing the important information with the employees. Now, we have discussed in this part overall the three parts of the three main pillars of the justice. That is, the first we explained the distributive justice, which talked about the distribution of rewards, and we discussed the procedural justice, which talks about overall the equitable rules and regulations, which is equal for all employees, and of course the fair procedural effect we explained, that is, if you try and empower the employee, this has a straight spillover impact onto the production by empowering him and making him a part of the important and vital decision making. And the last was interactional justice, in which we give emphasis on the respect, dignity and overall the concept of involvement and respect to the employees at large.
With this note, thank you, ma'am. Thank you so very much for discussing in detail the concept, evolution and types of organizational justice. And friends, we believe that you have gathered maximum information on the topic which we have mentioned. So dear friends, we would be meeting again after a very short break, so be with us. Hello friends, welcome to CEC live lectures and under our series on organizational behavior. In the previous session we discussed on concept, evolution and types of organizational justice, whereas in this session we are going to talk on antecedents and outcomes of organizational justice. So friends, we have again with us in our studios Dr. Amita Rajput. So I would like to request Dr. Rajput to discuss in detail on the following topic, that is antecedents and outcomes of organizational justice.
Yeah.
Over to you.
Yeah. So we have talked about in the first session the overall concept overview, merits, demerits, conceptual framework and the types of organizational justice. Now in this half we will be talking on if there is an injustice, how to respond, that is responses to injustice, antecedents and the outcomes of the organizational justice. This is very important for all the people who are associated with the organizations, be it an employee, be it an employer, to understand the conceptual framework of this kind of a concept of organizational justice, because they are going to implement that in the strategies which is going to help them in winning over the situations, because you are dealing with the human beings and it is most important and a difficult task to deal with the dynamics of the human beings, because we are full of emotions and sometimes the likes and the dislikes they cover our mind in such a big way that we are unable to take a right kind of a decision. So irrationality will come, the non-performance will come. So to avoid this, we should be able to understand that we should be able to endorse the kind of a justice to all kind of people, be it a distributional justice, procedural justice and interactional justice to the people. So taking this forward, now there are certain situations which very frequently occur when the employees feel that they are a victim of injustice. So how to respond to these injustice, how to tackle to these kind of a situation, we will have a look on this. It is most commonly a person or a group of people that comes under attack as employees may not feel inclined or qualified to question underlying organizational systems. A number of factors can influence the decisions to act on a perceived injustice, including the extent of its impact, perceptions of past and likely future injustice, and performed dispositions such as desire for retribution, tendency to confront and avoid problem situations. So we have seen here that there is sometimes the employee is under attack. He does not feel that he is being treated nicely, and there are a number of factors which can influence the decision to act in a perceived injustice, including the extent of its impact, the perceptions of how he has been treated in the past or is likely to be treated in the future in terms of the injustices which are happening to him, and the personal dispositions such as desire to retribution and tendency to confront and avoid the problem situations. Now, how to handle the responses to the injustice? You have to revise the system and procedures to eliminate the potential for gross injustice altogether. So that means there has to be a revamping of the situation, there has to be a revisiting of the systems, or it could be reframing of the procedures as well, because any kind of injustice situation is very dangerous for the organizational growth. So many organizations will already have a basic set of HR policies in place that are intended to promote fairness. For example, the standardized salary scales, development programs mentioned previously. To provide a controlled, accessible, responsive, non-repetitive means for the employees to access help and support to tackle unforeseen or one of the instances of injustice. Now we are coming on to the most vital part of our lecture today, that is the antecedents of organizational justice perceptions. This is the most vital for the organizational growth and development. It affects the organizational performance, motivation level, employee attrition rate, employee performance level. So we must have a clear understanding and insights about the antecedents of the organizational justice perceptions, the justice perceptions. So starting from the first, that is the employee participation. One antecedent to perceptions of organizational justice is the extent to which the employee feels that they are involved in the decision making or other organizational procedures. In addition, other studies have shown that employee input is related to both procedural and interpersonal justice perceptions. The second is communication. The quality of communication by an organization or a manager can improve the justice perception by improving employee perceptions of a manager, trustworthiness, and also by reducing the feelings of uncertainty. It is important that information provided should be accurate, it should be timely, and it should be able to help in order for the impact or injustice perception to be positive perception. The third most important antecedent is a justice climate. The recent research suggests that the team level perceptions of justice forms what is a justice climate, which can impact individuals' own views of justice. Similarly, the research findings show that individuals can learn justice evaluations from team members, and this can lead to the homogeneity of the justice perception within the teams, creating a strong justice climate. Now coming on to the outcomes of the organizational justice perception. Now before we discuss the outcomes, let us have a look on the antecedents once again. Now as you all know that there are certain antecedents which are very vital for the organizational justice perceptions, like for example the employee participation. This is one of the most important antecedent for the perception of the organizational justice in order to the extent to which the employee feels that they are involved in the decision making. So this makes the system empowered, it makes the system acceptable for the employees, that this is what they are doing themselves, this is their result of their own doing, And if they are away from the system or outside the system, they will always revolt and they will never be accepting the kind of a system. So one of the antecedents is that the employee participation should be increased to the maximum possible extent to make the system acceptable for the organization, and this is vital for their growth and commitment and the performance levels of the organizational employees. So in addition, the other studies have also shown that employee input is both procedural and interpersonal justice perceptions. The second is the communication. The communication is the essence of success for every organization. The quality of communication by an organization manager can improve the justice perceptions about improving the employee perceptions of the manager trustworthiness, and also by reducing the feelings of uncertainty. Because once we talk it out, once we discuss, once we are very clear and thorough with the communication systems, the more we communicate, the less injustice feelings would prevail, and if at all they are prevailing, you can control them to the maximum possible extent, because it is important that information provided should be accurate, should be in time, should be able to helpful. That is, you have to make the communication system more effective so as to reduce the climate of uncertainty, injustice in the organization. More important part is that more effective the interpersonal relationship, the employees' empowerment in terms of decision making, communication system. This is all going to empower the system in a very beautiful way, and the concept and the climate and the clouds of injustice would fade away right away. And similarly, the kind of a justice climate is also very important from the organizational point of view, and the recent studies also suggest the team level perceptions of justice form what is called as the justice climate, which can impact the individual's own views of justice. Research finding also shows that individuals can learn the justice evaluation with team members, and these can also lead to homogeneity of the justice perceptions within teams, creating a strong justice climate. Now, the outcomes of organizational justice perceptions. Now, there are certain outcomes which have to be very clearly understood. Again, if you are able to have that kind of a climate of justice, what are the outcomes? We have already discussed the antecedents of the justice. Employees' perception of injustice within the organization can result in a myriad of outcomes for both positive and negative. Trust. A positive relationship between an employee and supervisor can lead to trust in the organization. The second is performance. Procedural justice affects the performance as a result of its impact on employee attitudes. Distributive justice affects the performance when efficiency and the productivity are involved. Improving the justice perception improves the productivity and performance. Job satisfaction and organizational commitment. Job satisfaction was found to be positively associated with the overall perception of organizational justice, such that greater perceived injustice results in a lower levels of job satisfaction, and greater perception of justice results in a higher level of job satisfaction. Organizational citizenship behavior. Organizational citizenship behavior are actions that employees take to support the organization that go above and beyond the scope of their job description. Coming on to the counterproductive work behavior. Increased judgment of the procedural justice, for instance, can lead to employee unwillingness to comply with the organizational rules. Absenteeism and withdrawal. Failure to receive a promotion is an example of a situation in which the feelings of injustice, may result in an employee being absent from the work without a reason. Emotional exhaustion, which related to the employee health and burnout, is related to overall organizational justice perception. As perceptions of justice increased, employee health increases and burnout decreases. So till now we have discussed the overall outcomes of the organizational perceptions. Now, the outcomes of the organizational justice, that is, if there is a feeling among the employees that the organizational justice is prevailing to the best possible extent, what are the outcomes? a position of trust and confidence, and a fiduciary position will be prevailing in the organization. People will start trusting the organization. People will have a trust in their policies, strategies, programs, etc., which is good for the organization. And of course, it affects the performance level to the best possible extent. The performance levels would go up. Coming on to the job satisfaction level and commitment level, if the organizational justice, the concept is prevailing, it is going to add to the job satisfaction level, production levels, the commitment levels. Everything is positively related with the aspect of the job satisfaction and organizational justice. The organizational citizenship behavior. Organizational citizenship behavior are the actions that employees take to support the organization that go beyond the scope of their job description. Similarly, the counterproductive work behavior, increased judgment of the procedural injustice, for instance, can lead to employee unwillingness to comply with the organizational rules. Here I would like to explain here that this concept of injustice, this concept of mushrooming of this kind of a feeling that the organizational procedures are unjust, they are not able to give any kind of justice to the employee. There is overall a kind of a negative feeling which would prevail in the organization at large. People will feel dissatisfied, people will feel unhappy about the organization, and the answer is that they do not want to be a part of the organization as a whole and they want to leave the organization. So this would lead to rise in absenteeism, rise in labor turnover, etc., which is very detrimental to the growth of the organization at large. So there is a withdrawal, there is an absenteeism without any reason. So, to the best possible extent, the concept of organizational justice to be proliferated from the top to bottom levels. Similarly, there is an emotional exhaustion which is very important, which is related to employees' health, and burnouts, is related to overall injustice perceptions. As the perception of justice increases, the employee health increases and the burnout decreases. So, overall you have to keep this in mind that the organizational emotional exhaustion is a concept which has to be properly studied. There should not be any kind of a feeling of a burnout or negative impact of employee health in the organization. Why? Because if this kind of a feeling would prevail, this is definitely really bad for the organization. People will have this kind of feeling that their health issues are increasing here, so they do not want to be a part of the organization at large. So this is obviously not good for the organization. Now coming on to another vital part of the presentation of today, that is, what is the process to create the perception of organizational justice? That is how we are able to create the perception of the organizational justice which is good for the organization. As we have seen here, the first is selection procedure. The positive job candidates, building justice into the management systems. The second is a reward system, that is justly balancing the multiple goals. We have a conflict management, you don't have to win. Then you have a layoff, softening the hardships. The performance appraisals, keeping the score fairly high. So all these aspects, they would help in creation of the perception of the organizational justice, which is very important for the organization to form. That is, you have to show that you are just in your approach, you have to be very thorough with your workings, etc. in terms of the selection procedures, in terms of the reward systems, in terms of the layouts, in terms of the performance appraisals. So each and every activity should reflect that you are fair in your working. Now there are certain ways to promote the organizational justice. Pay the workers what they deserve, follow the open and fair procedures, offer the workers a voice, meet regularly and invite the input, conduct employee surveys, keep an open door policy, use suggestion method. Now I would be explaining these one by one. Now there are certain ways and means to promote the organizational justice which is very prerequisite for the organizational success. Out of this, the first is that there has to be a balance between the input and the output. input in terms of the energies, in terms of the experience, in terms of the work which is done by the employees, and the output is the reward and the payment and the recognitions. If there is any kind of an imbalance between the two, the employees would always be unhappy. So you should try and have this kind of an atmosphere in which his work is recognized, is duly paid. So this is really going to increase the environment and the climate of organizational justice. Followed by, you should have the open and the fair procedures. There should not be any concealment of any kind of an activity which is going to give a feeling, negative feeling to the employees that there are certain hidden things which are not known to them, or there are certain hidden policies which are detrimental to them. So you should have a very clear, crystal clear policies which are open, which are fair also for all the employees of the organization. Now, making and keeping the system like this, that the workers are empowered, employees are empowered, they have a voice in decision making. If this is going to be there, it is going to be a turnaround strategy for the organization in terms of their performance, motivation level. They feel that they are the ones who's taking decisions, they take the responsibilities on their shoulder, they feel very happy, motivated, empowered, and automatically there is an acceptance of the system at large. This is what the organization wants, and you should give a complete voice to the employees of today to make the system more worthy, more talented, in terms of they should feel that their voice is being heard, the employees. The next is that you should meet your people regularly. You should invite the inputs, that what kind of changes do you want. This kind of a suggestion of regular meeting them, regularly inviting the input from them is also going to make the system a good system, because you are inviting the feedback also, which is definitely going to make a system more empowered, more effective. Then you should have the employee surveys in which their names would be hidden, but yes, they would be opening their heart in terms of giving a right kind of advice for the policies, framework for the organization. Followed by an open door policy. The open door policy is very important because it's a kind of a grievance settlement. Anybody can come to anybody at any levels, irrespective of the hierarchy of the organization, and there's an open door policy in which they can just talk about their grievances, and the grievances have to be handled very tactfully. Followed by a suggestion system. There should be a suggestion box or a hidden kind of a thing in which they can always put in their suggestions. These suggestions are very valuable for the organization to keep them running for the organization. So this is how we are able to promote the organizational justice right from top to bottom, which is the need of today, which is more sustainable for the organization. This is going to make the system more empowered, successful, performance level would go up, motivation level would go up, and overall this is a good system for the organization to follow. So now coming on to the little aspects of the employee participation. The more you ask employees to participate, the more climate would be there for improvement of the organization, etc. The more communication policies are there, it is also going to make the system more empowered, because the communication has to be shown to be a related interpersonal and informational justice perceptions. It is important for the information provided to be accurate, timely, helpful in order to impact the justice perceptions to be more positive, and the higher quality of justice, the lower perception of the lower organizational injustice. The quality of communication by an organization or manager can improve the justice perception by improving the employee perception of manager trustworthiness, and also by reducing the feelings of uncertainty. So in any ways, we have to empower the employees, employee engagement, employee participation, communication levels. Then you have to create a justice climate to make the system going, and overall this makes the system more good, and the justice climate would prevail, which is very good for the organization. Now individuals can learn a justice evaluations from the team members. This can lead to homogeneity of the justice perceptions within a team, creating a strong justice climate. The group level perceptions of justice can be conceptualized as an antecedent of individual justice performance and perceptions. Now here I would like to add here that the concept of justice which is taken at an individual level could be different from the concept of justice as at a group level. Here in the organizations, we are working in teams. We are having a overall teamwork in which there are few people who are a part and parcel of the team. Whatever we work, whatever we do, all the team members, team leaders are responsible for this. So you should try and endorse a concept of organizational justice to all individuals. A kind of a training could be 1 hour, could be 1 day, could be 3 weeks, could be 4 weeks, as and when the situation could be. You should give the conceptual framework to the individuals so that they are all at the same level in terms of understanding the conceptual aspect of the organizational justice. Each and every individual of the team member should have the same concept in their mind, same values imbibed in their minds in terms of making a consensus in terms of the organizational justice. Only then the things would work out, only then the group commitment would come, only then the justice climate would prevail in the same sense, in the same meaning for the whole organization. So, overall, if the organizational climate is prevailing, there are certain outcomes of the organizational justice and injustice. It leads to the performance, it leads to the trust, it leads to the job satisfaction, commitments, citizenship behavior, absenteeism and withdrawal, and emotional exhaustion. In this aspect, there are certain positive and certain negative outcomes which have to be checked, controlled. Positive outcomes have to be increased, negative outcomes have to be controlled. Overall, you have to build the climate of trust so that whatever the organizational activities are performing, the trust is moving up. The relationship between trust and organizational justice perception is based on mutuality. The trust in the organization is built on the employees' belief that the current organization decisions are fair. Future organizational decisions will also be fair. The continuance of the employee trust in the organization and organization continuing to meet the employee's expectation of fairness creates the reciprocal relationship between trust and organizational justice. A positive relationship between an employee and supervisor can also lead to trust in the organization. This also leads to a good performance levels. Equity theory of organizational justice that suggests that when people perceive injustice, they seek to restore the justice. One way that employees restore justice is by altering their level of job performance. Procedural justice affects the organization performance as a result of its impact on employee attitude. Distributive justice affects the performance when efficacy and the productivity are involved. Improved justice perceptions improve the productivity and performance. Job satisfaction and organizational commitment. Job satisfaction was found to be positively associated with overall perceptions of organizational justice. That greater perception of injustice results in lower levels of job satisfaction and vice versa. Additionally, organizational commitment is related to perception of procedural justice, that a greater perceived injustice results in diminished commitment, which greater perceived justice results in increased commitment of the organization. Of course, we are talking about the organizational behavior shift. There is a less absenteeism, there is a less withdrawal, and of course, when you have a injustice feeling prevailing in the organization, you have a feeling of burnout which should be avoided. So coming on to the last aspect of today's presentation, I want you to see this particular stepping stone. This is the ways to promote the organizational justice. This is the last message of today's lecture. The first is pay workers what they deserve. You should not be compromising on the monetary aspect. There should not be any disbalance between the input and the output levels, because the monetary aspects is one thing which fills the overall organization with the concept of injustice and unfairness. So at any cost, you should pay the workers what they deserve. This is the first step. After you take the first step, the second is follow open and fair procedures. There should not be any kind of a feeling which should prevail in the organization that there is something which is being concealed. Whatever policies you follow should be open door also, should be crystal clear and should be on the website, so that people have this kind of a feeling that the procedures are same for everyone. There should not be any kind of biasness in terms of the rules and the procedures which is being followed. Next is offer the worker a voice. That is, you should empower the employees to make the system acceptable for the organization. The fourth is to meet the employees regularly, to take their inputs regularly, then conduct the employee surveys at a very regular level, followed by keeping an open door policy. That is, a grievance settlement mechanism should be effective and strong. So overall, these are the ways and the means to promote the organizational justice. This kind of a feeling of organizational justice, if prevailed, it is going to definitely increase the profits, profitability, performance levels, motivation level, decrease in the labor turnover, and overall it's a very effective strategy for the organizational success. Thank you so much.
With this note, thank you, ma'am. Thank you so very much for giving us a very productive session. Dear friends, we believe that you might have learnt a lot through today's session, and if you want to ask questions from Dr. Namita Rajput, then you can send us your questions at our ID info.cec@nic.in. We are going to upload this lecture on YouTube. Friends, you can see multiple lectures on YouTube pertaining to the series Organizational Behavior, as well as all the lectures concerning to the other subjects also are there on the YouTube. For that, you need to click to www.youtube.com/CEC-UGC. So friends, we would be meeting again very soon and would be discussing on another topic under the series. Till then, take care. Goodbye. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you once again.